John Harley Butler was born on December 4th, 1907, in a farm community in northwestern Arkansas overlooking the Buffalo River near Maumee, not far from Marshall. His parents, James K. and Frances Morrison Butler, both taught school and farmed. They liked farming better and discontinued teaching. Some of their family had moved to Oklahoma because of the good farmland available, so when Daddy was about 13, the family sold the farm and equipment, loaded their remaining furniture, tools, livestock, and personal items onto a train car in Gilbert, Arkansas, and moved to western Oklahoma near Dill City. Daddy lived with his parents, 3 brothers, Clyde, Sturman, and Doyle, 4 sisters, Doris, Ina, Chloe, and Lois. They lived in the Dill City area until 1923. Then they moved to Alfalfa Sickles area, and in 1928 moved to a farm just southwest of Weatherford. In 1932, they moved to the Thomas area, where Daddy met Annabelle Barton, and they were married on October 21st, 1933. Daddy and Mother's first home was on a farm just south of Thomas, where Daddy worked for the owner, and they began developing their future by renting and farming additional land so they could save money to purchase their own farm. An optimistic goal, since this was during the Great Depression era.
They were very successful and moved to a farm just east of Thomas in 1941, which they were able to purchase not long afterwards. That location became the center for all activities of the family for the next 40-some years. That farmhouse was the location for their planning, for their farming, gardening, food processing, and was the base for their custom harvesting operation. But most of all, it was and continues to be recognized by all of us children as our home, a source of love, companionship, and a place to learn about and resolve the issues of life. It was also a safe harbor and retreat for the family when the world around us was chaotic. The Word of God was the preferred standard and final authority of all ethical and behavioral matters. All activities and social functions were influenced by those guidelines and were enjoyed with the expectation of meeting the approval of God. Family participation in activities of the church, including public worship service, home Bible studies, and singing of inspirational songs, was a focus of the family. Those activities were highly valued as normal family activities. This environment provided the opportunity for family discussions, which created great memories and a source of strength and expectation of success in our endeavors. Daddy understood the value of good work ethics, problem solving, delegation of authority and responsibility. He was an excellent mechanic and had many of the natural skills required to run a successful farming and custom harvesting operation. But he added to that natural ability to the driving force to understand and motivate the family and friends who joined him, turning the summer months into a challenging and rewarding experience.
He owned, operated, and maintained harvesting equipment and trucks for over 20-some years. He harvested crops from southern Oklahoma through northern Nebraska. The farming and the wheat harvesting made spring and summer months around the Butler household quite busy and hectic. However, the fall was a little more laid back. But the winter months seemed to be the most relaxing around the Butler household. Before daylight, Daddy would rise early to build a fire in the wood-burning stove, so the house would be warm for the family when they arose. If we listened carefully, we could hear him whistling or singing while preparing to start the day. With the fire started and ready for the day, he would often pick up his Bible to relax and read for a while. During these winter months, he would often sell a load of wheat stored on the farm in order to have money for groceries and pay bills. In the early mornings, we would often hear the rhythmic sound of the wheat scoop moving grain from the granary to the truck, with a melody in the background providing motivation and reflection. Daddy was a student of the Bible, and a couple of his favorite topics of meditation and discussion were what God expected from him and what God was doing in his life. His daddy would say, "I know I'm not perfect, but I know the one who is, and I depend upon him every day." His goal was to teach his children to be productive members of society, but more importantly, to know God and dedicate their lives fully to him.
Music was important in Daddy's life. His moments of meditation and decision were often filled with music, especially whistling and singing. As we would walk beside him to fix a fence or get the cows from the pasture, and conversations somehow stopped, and we knew he was in deep thought, he quite often would begin to whistle. If any of us became separated from him on the farm or in a large department store, we could usually find him by following the sound of his whistling. Daddy also loved to sing, and many hours were spent at family gatherings singing and learning new songs. He sang with his family at home and encouraged group singing while en route to church or other social activities and family trips. Whether he was analyzing a serious situation or reflecting on a minor decision, singing or whistling seemed to accompany his meditation. Daddy and Mother were faithful, dedicated members of the Church of Christ and believed that the church was an important component of the community. At a time when Daddy had a full-time job meeting the needs of a large family, he devoted time and effort to establish a new congregation in Thomas. Even though speakers and their families from surrounding congregations did much to encourage and help the congregation, Daddy shouldered most of the responsibility for the leadership, teaching, and song leading. In 1969, Daddy retired from active farming and rented the farm, but continued to help farm and tend cattle for a few more years. Also during this time, he worked for a farm implement dealer in Thomas. In 1985, he and Mother moved to Oklahoma City in order to spend more time with their family.
Although it required an adjustment to live in the city, Daddy stayed active. He helped Mother by grinding the wheat for her weekly bread baking and made frequent trips to the store for the things she needed. He maintained their house and yard as well as help others who needed assistance. In addition, he really enjoyed visiting family-operated farms, shops, and businesses, offering tips and advice if appropriate. Daddy loved to talk and visit with anybody. He was blessed with an excellent memory and could spend hours accurately telling about family, friends, and things that happened in and during his life. Daddy and Mother lived in Oklahoma City until giving up their home to move to an assisted living center in Mustang. That was a major lifestyle change which they had made, but were not quite ready for at that time. So they lived with one of the children for a few years. They then moved to a health care center in Oklahoma City and most recently to a health care center in Guthrie. Perhaps one of the greatest gifts Daddy has left us is a positive example of how to age gracefully. He did this by accepting the inevitable changes of aging, such as voluntarily selling the farm, giving up driving, and leaving their home when needing more care than they could provide for each other. Daddy's mind remained sharp, and he was aware of the things that were happening. And he could say with understanding and confidence, like the Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16, "For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day." His hope and advice for us today no doubt would include the words of Solomon found in Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths."